I will start off by saying there will be massive spoilers in this video for both Red Dead Redemption 1 and Red Dead Redemption 2. You have been warned. Red Dead Redemption 2 was easily my favorite game of 2018 and is quite possibly one of my favorite games of all time. The world that Rockstar created in this game is simply a triumph, unrivaled in both breadth and scope. But what really makes Red Dead Redemption 2 special to me is the character of Arthur Morgan. What makes Arthur Morgan so compelling is because he differs from typical video game protagonists in two main ways. One, he is a reflective, thoughtful, and surprisingly romantic character. And two, he actually undergoes significant change throughout the course of the story, and the force that sparks this change is one of the most human phenomenon a person can experience, a sickness. It's established early on that Arthur Morgan is essentially the fixer of Dutch van der Linde's gang. If you're in a pinch, you go to Arthur. He's a no-nonsense, rough-and-tumble guy who's willing to get his hands dirty to get the tough stuff done. But behind this rugged exterior lies a pensive character. Arthur demonstrates a thoughtfulness often unseen in video game characters. He is constantly questioning his place in life, as well as the choices he's made. This is none more apparent than in the missions that involve his past love, Mary. These moments illustrate that there is a part of Arthur that yearns for a safer domestic life. Unfortunately, being an outlaw is really all he's ever known, so it becomes impossible for him to let that side go. But he's a smart enough character to actually recognize that, and he struggles with it, but just like in the real world, it's not something that has a clear or definite answer. The game also has other ways it shows Arthur's romantic and sensitive side. Arthur's personal journal is filled with some great hand-drawn sketches, showcasing not only his acute perception, but also that he's been practicing his drawing for quite some time now. And as he jots down his feelings in his journal, you see how introspective he is as he contemplates everything that's happening around him. Arthur shows glimpses of a vulnerability that makes him a more relatable and grounded character. And this self-reflective nature is why the change that he goes through by the end of the game so utterly gripping and emotional. Video game protagonists rarely change throughout the course of a single game's narrative. The character's personality is often established pretty early on, and rarely do they deviate from this. And if a character does evolve, the impetus for this change is often more external or bombastic in nature. But the thing that brings about change in Arthur is a disease, namely tuberculosis. It's something that can affect anyone, no matter how tough they are or how good they are with a six-shooter. The fact that a disease is what ultimately brings Arthur down is why Red Dead Redemption 2's story works. It grounds the story in a reality that one doesn't expect from a video game. It's not a cataclysmic, world-altering event that kills Arthur, or a big bad villain shanking him when he least expects it. It's just an illness. And I just want to emphasize, video games just don't do this, especially blockbuster AAA games that have this kind of budget. Games of this size and scope usually aren't going for subtlety or nuance, but Red Dead Redemption 2 works because of the personal tragedy of Arthur Morgan and the evolution he undergoes once he has this terminal illness. Once Arthur realizes he doesn't have much time left, he becomes scared, like any normal human being would. He starts to show an even deeper vulnerability and a downright fear of death. As he faces down the inevitability of his sickness, he thinks back on the mistakes he's made, the people he's aligned himself with, and the lives he's ruined. And he starts trying to make amends for the people he's wronged, and he spends a large chunk of the latter half of the game trying to atone for these sins. He first does this by trying to help out what's left of the Downs family. The Downs family is actually most likely the reason he caught tuberculosis to begin with. In what appears to be an early game throwaway mission in which you're supposed to collect debt from a poor family, this interaction with this family ends up being the turning point in Arthur's life. As Arthur is viciously beating up Thomas Downs, the patriarch of the family, Thomas ends up coughing blood onto Arthur. Thomas's wife Edith mentions that he is sick, and once Arthur also becomes sick later in the game, he surmises this was the moment that doomed him. Thomas later dies, presumably from a combination of the disease and the trauma that Arthur inflicted upon him. Arthur then sees Edith and her son later on in the game, once Arthur is diagnosed with tuberculosis, and he sees that they are now a destitute family without their father, trying to do whatever is needed to scrape by. Regardless of whether Arthur's actions were the sole reason this family is now in ruins isn't clear, but it doesn't matter. Arthur now feels guilty for what he's done, and he does whatever he can to try to help them. He's practically begging them to take his money at one point, doing whatever he can to absolve himself of the horrible things he's done. Arthur knows that helping the family he potentially destroyed won't make his sickness go away, but he's trying to find some absolution as he realizes that he doesn't have much time left on this earth. And it's not just with the Downs family that Arthur tries to find some sort of absolution. His interactions with John Marston demonstrate this as well. He realizes that John has the family that he was never able to have and can live the life he was never able to live. Arthur does whatever he can to make sure that John and his family are safe, as the Vanderlyn gang is starting to fall apart. Arthur tries to find something to believe in, and he's clinging to the belief that good can exist in this merciless world. My favorite scene in the entire game is the scene between Arthur and the nun at the train station. His interactions with the nun encapsulates what I love about Arthur's arc. The vulnerability he showed glimpses of throughout the earlier parts of the game is on full display here. He knows he's made mistakes, and he knows he's going to keep making mistakes, but he so desperately wants the validation that he won't die as a wicked, evil person, while being fully aware of all the horrible acts he's already committed. He's lost, confused, and hopeless, just like most people would be when they're staring down death. People become scared when they know they don't have much time left. That's a human thing to feel, and Arthur is one of the most human characters a video game has ever had.
I guess I'm afraid.
There is nothing to be afraid of, Mr. Morgan. Take a gamble that love exists and do a loving act.
The word redemption really is the heart and soul of both of the Red Dead Redemption games, but each game personifies the idea of redemption in completely different ways. In the first game, it's about John Marston's son, Jack, enacting his redemption for the murder of his father. And it happens in the most bombastic, dramatic way possible, a gunslinging duel where he mercilessly and vengefully guns down the wretched man who betrayed his father. But in the second game, the word redemption takes on a completely different meaning. It's about Arthur trying to redeem his past sins once he comes down with a terminal illness, and coming to terms with the decisions he's made throughout his life. His reflective nature allows him to realize the life he's led may be an irredeemable one, and the evolution he goes through because of this realization is why Arthur Morgan has one of the most touching, poignant, and tragic arcs of any video game protagonist ever.